A farmer notices something disturbing. His white horse disappears every night without a trace. When it returns at dawn, it's completely exhausted, as if it had traveled a long journey. With each passing day, the mystery only grows. Where does that animal go? What does it find in its nocturnal outings? What the farmer discovers by following his horse on a dark night in the cemetery would change his life forever. And I guarantee it's something you would never imagine. If you love animals as much as we do, hit that subscribe button now so you don't miss any heartwarming stories. Thanks. Now, back to our story. The sun was setting slowly over the rolling green hills of Harmony Ranch, painting the sky with shades of orange that made Luna's white coat shimmer like polished silver. Hank watched his majestic horse from the porch of the old farmhouse, a steaming mug of coffee in his calloused hands. There was something different about the animal's behavior these last few weeks, something that intrigued him and at the same time worried him deeply. Mary, his wife of 40 years, approached silently and placed her hand on his shoulder. Her graying hair framed her gentle face, etched with the lines of time and the sun of the countryside. "Thinking about Luna again, aren't you?" she asked, her soft voice carrying a note of concern. Hank nodded, his eyes never leaving the horse as she grazed peacefully in the pasture. "It's the third week in a row, Mary. Every night she disappears, like she has a secret appointment with the dark. And when she comes back, at dawn—" He paused, searching for the right words. "She's always exhausted, hungry, like she's traveled miles and miles." Mary squeezed his shoulder lightly, sharing his unease. Luna wasn't just any horse. She had always shown extraordinary intelligence since she arrived at the ranch as a foal. Over the years, she developed a special connection with Hank and Mary, as if she were more than just an animal, more than just a work companion. She was part of the family. "Last night," Hank continued, his voice low and thoughtful, "I stayed up later. I saw her leave the stable, even with the gate latched. You should have seen it, Mary. It was like she knew exactly what she was doing, opened the latch with her teeth, the same way she's seen us do it hundreds of times." Dusk advanced, and the first stars began to dot the sky. Luna raised her head, her ears moving like antennas, attuned to some call that only she could hear. Hank felt a chill run down his spine. That's how it started every night. Mary held his arm, her dark eyes filled with concern. "Hank, it's getting dark. It could be dangerous." On the horizon, the full moon began to rise, large and silvery, like a watchful eye in the sky. Luna moved towards the stable, her hooves marking a soft rhythm on the packed earth. Hank quickly went inside, grabbed a flashlight and an old jacket. Hidden behind a tree near the stable, Hank watched as Luna repeated her nightly ritual. With a precision that seemed almost human, the mare manipulated the latch of the gate with her teeth, opening it without making a sound. Her movements were deliberate, as if each step were part of an important mission. Luna emerged from the stable, her white coat reflecting the moonlight like a ghost. She stopped for a moment, sniffing the night air, and then began to walk towards the road that led to town. Hank waited until she had moved away a bit before he began to follow her, his heart beating faster with the anticipation of the mystery he was about to unravel. The night was clear, illuminated by the full moon, but there was something in the air that made Hank feel uneasy. Luna maintained a steady pace, as if she were following a familiar path. They crossed fields, passed by old fences, and gradually the lights of the small town began to appear in the distance. Hank felt his heart tighten when he realized the direction Luna was taking. The path now wound towards the town cemetery, a place that was already somber during the day, and at night took on even more mysterious contours. What could his mare want in that place of eternal rest? Luna stopped before the iron gates of the cemetery, her white silhouette outlined against the starry sky. Hank, hidden behind a nearby tree, held his breath. What would come next would forever change not only his life, but the lives of many others. Hank felt the cold night air penetrate his bones as he watched Luna cross the cemetery gates with unsettling familiarity. The full moon illuminated the old tombstones, creating shadows that danced among the graves like silent ghosts. The farmer hesitated for a moment, his hand tightening on the unlit flashlight. He wouldn't need it with so much moonlight. With cautious steps, he followed the path that Luna traced between the graves. The mare seemed to know exactly where she was going, her hooves carefully choosing where to step, as if respecting the eternal sleep of those who rested there. Hank noticed that she was heading towards the oldest part of the cemetery, where centuries-old mausoleums stood like small stone houses. It was then that he heard it, a sound so soft that it could have been just the wind, but his experienced ears recognized it as something else. A muffled sob, almost imperceptible. Luna quickened her pace slightly, and Hank, his heart pounding, did the same. As they turned a particularly dense row of tombs, the scene that unfolded before him made his heart stop for an instant. There, huddled between two ancient tombstones, was a small figure. A girl, no more than 6 years old, slept in a restless sleep on a piece of cardboard. Her clothes, dirty and torn, barely protected her from the cold night. Her dark hair was tangled, and her little face, even in sleep, carried an expression of deep sadness. Luna approached the girl with an impressive delicacy for an animal of her size. With gentle movements, she lay down next to her, positioning her body to protect her from the cutting wind. The child, still sleeping, instinctively snuggled against the animal's warmth, her small hands clinging to the white mane. Hank stood paralyzed, silent tears streaming down his weathered face. Now everything made sense. The nightly outings, the exhaustion at dawn, Luna's determination to maintain her mysterious routine. His mare had become the guardian of this lost little soul, offering warmth and protection on cold and lonely nights. Carefully, so as not to scare the girl, Hank approached. Luna raised her head, her intelligent eyes meeting those of her owner as if pleading for help. He knelt beside them, noticing how the child was trembling, despite the warmth offered by the animal. The girl stirred, her eyes opening slowly. When she saw Hank, she tried to shrink even further against Luna, the fear evident in her frightened gaze. "Don't be afraid," he continued, keeping his voice calm and gentle. "Luna is my friend, and I see she's your friend too." Upon hearing the mare's name, something changed in the girl's eyes. Her large eyes moved between Hank and Luna, as if trying to decide if she could trust him. Luna whinnied softly, a reassuring sound that seemed to calm the child. "Sophia," he repeated affectionately. "That's a very pretty name. I see you and Luna have become great friends. She's been coming here every night to take care of you, hasn't she?" Hank felt his heart clench even tighter. How many nights had this child spent like this, having only a horse as her protector and source of comfort? "Sophia," he said gently, "it's very cold here. My wife Mary and I have a warm house on the ranch. Luna lives there too. Would you like to come with us?" The girl's eyes filled with tears, and she looked at Luna as if asking for advice. The mare moved her head gently, touching Sophia's shoulder with her muzzle. It was as if she understood perfectly what was happening and approved of the suggestion. The moon was still shining in the sky when Hank, Sophia, and Luna began their journey back to the ranch. The girl had refused to be carried, preferring to walk beside Luna, her little hand never leaving the mare's soft fur. Hank watched the two with a mixture of admiration and concern, noticing how Sophia's steps were hesitant and tired. Luna adjusted her pace to that of the child, like a patient mother guiding her cub. From time to time, the mare would stop, waiting for Sophia to catch her breath, her gentle muzzle touching the girl's shoulder in a gesture of encouragement. Hank realized that the bond between the two went far beyond what he could have imagined. "The ranch isn't too far now," he commented softly, trying to distract Sophia from the exhaustion she was clearly feeling. "Mary, my wife, should be awake waiting for us. She makes the best hot cocoa you've ever tasted." Hank felt his heart ache. "No, little one. Mary has the sweetest heart in the world. She loves children and I'm sure will be very happy to meet you." "Hank!" she called, her voice full of concern and curiosity. Sophia immediately hid behind Luna, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Mary brought her hands to her mouth, her eyes filling with tears upon seeing the girl's condition. As they got closer to the light of the house, the details became more evident: the torn clothes, the dirty feet, the face marked by dried tears. With the gentleness that only a mother at heart could have, Mary knelt at a safe distance from Sophia. "Hello, sweetheart," she said, her voice as soft as a summer breeze. "You must be cold and hungry. How about we go inside? I made hot cocoa and there's fresh bread that I just baked." In the cozy kitchen, illuminated by the golden light of an old lantern, Mary heated the cocoa while Hank looked for clean, dry clothes that could fit Sophia. The girl remained near the door, her large eyes watching every movement with a mixture of distrust and fascination. Sophia hesitated, but the sweet aroma was irresistible to someone who couldn't remember the last time she had eaten something warm. With small steps, she approached the table, climbing onto the chair carefully. Her hands trembled as she picked up the steaming mug. Hank returned with a clean, soft nightgown, one that Mary kept carefully in her memory chest. "After you eat, you can take a warm bath and put this on for bed," he said. "We prepared the guest room for you." Can I stay?" she asked, her voice choked. "I promise not to be any trouble. I can help with the chores and..." If you're enjoying the story, please subscribe to the channel. Continuing. A soft whinny came from outside, causing Sophia to stir in her sleep. Luna, faithful as always, had spent the night under the window of the room, as if wanting to ensure that her ward was safe even in this new environment. Mary smiled, thinking about how animals sometimes showed more humanity than many human beings. "Slept through the night," Mary replied in the same low tone, "but she had some nightmares, called for her dad a few times." A movement in the bed caught their attention. Sophia began to awaken, her large eyes opening slowly, confused by the unfamiliar surroundings. For a moment, panic crossed her face, until her gaze met Luna's through the window. The mare whinnied again, as if saying good morning, and a small smile, the first they had seen, appeared on the girl's lips. Sophia nodded timidly, sitting up in bed and pulling the blanket up to her chin. Her eyes scanned the room, stopping at every detail: the floral curtains, the wallpaper with little birds, the antique dresser with an oval mirror. In the sunny kitchen, while Sophia ate with restrained appetite, as if fearing that the food might disappear at any moment, Mary and Hank exchanged meaningful glances. They needed to understand more about the girl's situation, but they didn't want to pressure her. The girl lowered her fork, her eyes instantly filling with tears. "Daddy is sick," she whispered. "He works at the cemetery, taking care of the flowers and the graves, but now..." Her voice failed. Sophia nodded, a tear running down her cheek. "Aunt Regina said he went to the hospital. She doesn't like me, said I'm a burden, that I'm too much trouble. So I ran away. I wanted to stay close to Daddy, even if it was at the cemetery. Mommy went to live with the angels when I was a baby," Sophia replied with the painful simplicity of children. "Daddy always says she's watching over me from up there." "Of course you can," Hank replied with a gentle smile. "In fact, how about I show you the whole ranch? We have other animals too. Chickens, rabbits, and 2 more horses. Luna must be wanting to introduce you to them all." Mary exchanged a determined look with Hank before holding Sophia's small hand. "Don't worry about that now, honey. You're safe here. We're going to take care of you until your dad gets better. I promise." The morning at Harmony Ranch unfolded like a flower in the sun, filled with discoveries for Sophia. With Luna always by her side, the girl followed Hank around the yard, her eyes wide at each new animal she encountered. The chickens clucked happily, the rabbits hopped in their pens, and the other 2 horses, Star and Thunder, watched the small visitor curiously. "Want to help feed the chickens?" Hank asked, holding a bucket of corn. Sophia hesitated for a moment, but then nodded affirmatively, extending her small hands to receive a handful of grains. Sophia imitated the gesture with extreme care, as if each grain were precious. A genuine smile lit up her face when the chickens came running, pecking animatedly around her. Luna remained close, like an attentive guardian, her ears moving at the slightest sound. Mary watched the scene from the kitchen door, her heart overflowing with emotion. In just a few hours, it was already possible to see subtle changes in Sophia. Her shoulders were less tense, her eyes brighter, her voice a little more present when she answered questions. "Look!" Sophia exclaimed suddenly, her voice louder than they had heard until then. A speckled hen had come close enough to gently peck her fingers in search of more corn. The girl's crystalline laughter echoed through the yard, a sound so pure and precious that made Mary wipe away a discreet tear. The moment of joy, however, was interrupted by the sound of a car approaching on the dirt road. Luna immediately raised her head, her ears pointed in the direction of the noise. Sophia, perceiving the change in the mare's behavior, instinctively ran behind her, the fear returning to her eyes. Hank and Mary exchanged worried glances. They weren't expecting visitors, and few people knew the way to that more isolated part of the ranch. The rumble of the engine grew louder, and soon a black car appeared on the bend of the road. Mary quickly approached Sophia, placing herself beside the girl. "It's okay, honey. We're not going to let anything bad happen to you." "I knew it!" she shouted, pointing an accusing finger towards Sophia. "I knew you'd be here, you ungrateful little brat. I've been looking everywhere." "Ma'am," Hank interjected, his voice firm but controlled, "I believe we need to talk civilly. Shouting isn't going to help anything." Mary felt Sophia tremble violently beside her. The girl had shrunk so much she seemed to have diminished in size. "You're scaring her," Mary said, her normally sweet voice carrying a steely tone. "And from the state we found her in, I believe we have a lot to talk about." "This is kidnapping!" she declared, her face red with anger. "I'm calling the police right now!" Hank's words hit Regina like a slap. For the first time, she seemed to falter, her gaze alternating between Sophia, who was crying silently behind Luna, and the couple who now stood protectively beside the girl. The silence that followed Hank's words was broken only by Luna's soft snorting, who remained steadfast in her protective position. Regina seemed to have lost some of her initial arrogance, her eyes now revealing a touch of concern that hadn't been there before. Mary felt her blood boil upon hearing those words. Gently, she knelt beside Sophia, who was still hiding behind Luna. "Honey," she whispered to the girl, "can you tell us what your life was like at Aunt Regina's house?" "I was alone," she said, so low that everyone had to strain to hear. "Aunt Regina left early and only came back at night. I didn't have enough food. Sometimes there were only stale crackers, and it was very cold. She wouldn't let me turn on the heat." Regina took a step forward, but Luna whinnied in warning. "She's exaggerating. Of course there was food, and as for the heat, the electric bill is too expensive. I can't—" "Ms. Regina," Hank interrupted her, his voice carrying an authority that came from years of dealing with difficult situations. "You have two paths now. We can call the police and Child Protective Services and let them see the conditions in which Sophia was living. Or we can try to resolve this in a way that's best for everyone, especially for your niece." Mary, still embracing Sophia, added, "Think of your brother, Regina. What would he say if he knew that his daughter was sleeping in a cemetery because she felt safer there than in your house?" She began, her voice failing. "I don't know how to take care of children. I never wanted to have kids. When my brother got sick, I didn't have a choice. But maybe I've handled the situation badly." "It's not too late to do the right thing," Hank said, his tone softer now. "Sophia can stay with us until her dad recovers. We have space, time, and more importantly, a lot of love to give. You can come visit her whenever you want, and together we can create a safe environment for her." Luna, noticing the change in the tone of the conversation, slightly relaxed her posture, but remained close to Sophia. The girl, still clinging to the mare's mane, looked at her aunt with a mixture of fear and hope. "Leave that to us," Mary interjected. "The important thing now is Sophia's well-being. We can go to town today, talk to the relevant authorities, do everything within the law. What we can't do is allow this child to continue suffering." The innocent gesture and the girl's sincere words seemed to touch something deep within Regina. Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time since her arrival, a sad smile appeared on her lips. The week that followed Regina's visit brought significant changes for everyone at Harmony Ranch. With temporary authorization from her aunt, obtained with the help of Child Protective Services, Sophia was beginning to put down roots in her new home. Her smiles, once so rare, now brightened the house more often, especially during the mornings when she helped Mary feed the animals. On that particular morning, while the dew still covered the grass like tiny diamonds, Sophia was especially excited. Hank had promised to teach her how to brush Luna, a task she awaited with growing anticipation. The mare, in turn, seemed to share the girl's anticipation, whinnying softly whenever Sophia approached the stable. Sophia watched with rapt attention, her large eyes fixed on every gesture. When it was her turn, she imitated Hank with a gentleness surprising for a child her age. Luna lowered her head, allowing the girl to brush her with smooth, rhythmic strokes. Sophia's heart stopped for an instant, her little hands freezing in the middle of the brushstroke. Luna, sensing the sudden tension of her young friend, turned her head to look at her with attentive eyes. The words hung in the air for a moment, as if time had suspended its course. Sophia stood motionless, the brush still in her hand, her eyes filling with tears, but this time they were tears of joy. Sophia's face lit up like a sunrise, but soon a shadow of concern crossed her eyes. "But what about Luna? And you? Will I have to leave?" Luna whinnied softly, as if wanting to participate in the conversation. Sophia dropped the brush and hugged the mare's neck, her small body trembling with emotions too intense to be contained. While they prepared for the visit, Sophia ran to her room. No longer the guest room, but a space that Mary and Hank had dedicated the last few nights decorating, especially for her, with walls in soft shades of blue and curtains with small embroidered horses. As they got into the car, the sun reached its highest point in the sky, bathing the ranch in a golden light that seemed to bless that moment. Luna watched from the fence, her white silhouette outlined against the blue of the sky, like an attentive guardian who knew that her mission, far from ending, was only entering a new phase. Sophia hugged her drawing against her chest, a smile illuminating her face as she waved to Luna. "Yes," she replied, with a conviction that surprised everyone. "Now I'm really ready." "Your dad is very anxious to see you," the nurse commented with a gentle smile, noticing the girl's nervousness. "He hasn't stopped talking about you since he woke up." Sophia shook her head, taking a deep breath as she had learned from Hank when brushing Luna. "I need to be brave," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. "Like Luna." The nurse opened the door softly, revealing a room illuminated by natural light coming through the wide window. In the bed, a thin and pale man, but with extraordinarily lively eyes, turned his head towards the door. The instant he saw Sophia, his face transformed with an emotion so profound that it made Mary bring her hand to her lips to stifle a sob. "Daddy!" Sophia's cry of joy echoed through the room as she ran to the bed, the drawing still clutched in her hands. The father extended his arms, and in seconds the two were embracing, silent tears streaming down both faces. "I'm sorry, my love," he said between sobs. "I'm sorry for getting sick, for not being able to take care of you." "It's Luna," Sophia explained with renewed enthusiasm. "She found me at the cemetery, you know, and she protected me every night. And then Mr. Hank and Mrs. Mary took me to their ranch, and there are other animals too, and Sophia told us that you're the caretaker at the cemetery," Hank said gently, approaching the bed. "I'm Hank, and this is my wife Mary." Mary smiled, placing the basket of fruit on the table beside the bed. "Sophia brought gifts for you. She helped make the cake herself." A heavy silence fell over the room. It was Hank who took the initiative to explain the situation, his voice calm but firm as he told about how they had found Sophia, about Luna, about the temporary agreement with Regina. "Daddy," Sophia called, her voice small but resolute. "Don't be sad. Luna took care of me, and now I have Mr. Hank and Mrs. Mary too. They're very nice." Antonio adjusted himself in the hospital bed, still holding Sophia. His curious gaze turned towards Mary. The afternoon light coming through the window created a golden glow in the room, as if the sun itself wanted to witness that moment. Hank approached, standing beside his wife. "Yes, you see, Mr. Antonio, our ranch is big, bigger than we can manage on our own. We have a caretaker's house that has been empty for years near the stable where Luna stays." Sophia's eyes widened, shining with a joy impossible to contain. "Really? Can we live near Luna?" "That's where the second part of the proposal comes in," Hank explained with a gentle smile. "We need help on the ranch. The work isn't as heavy as being a cemetery caretaker, especially at first while you recover. It would be more about taking care of the garden, helping with the smaller animals, keeping the fences in order. In exchange, the house would be yours, free of charge." Sophia jumped on the bed, unable to contain her excitement. "Daddy, please. That way I can see Luna every day, and the chickens and the bunnies and—" "Antonio," she said sincerely, "it's not charity. We really need help on the ranch, and besides—" She paused, choosing her words. "Sophia has brought so much joy to our house in these few days. It would be a blessing to have you both around." Antonio looked at his daughter, seeing how she practically radiated happiness. In recent years, since the death of his wife, he had tried so hard to give the girl a decent life. The work at the cemetery didn't pay much, but it was honest, and he was able to keep a roof over their heads, until he got sick. Hank laughed softly. "You know, I sometimes think the same thing. Luna has always been special, but the way she took care of you, it really seemed like she had a greater purpose." "There's a school bus that passes by the ranch," Mary replied readily. "Other children in the area use it too, and on the days you need to go to town for medical appointments, you can use our truck." Antonio looked at his daughter, then at the couple who had saved not only Sophia, but also him, offering a chance at a fresh start that he had never imagined possible. His eyes filled with tears again. Sophia hugged her father tightly. "Please, Daddy," she whispered, "Luna is waiting for us." The 2 weeks that followed the conversation in the hospital were of intense activity at Harmony Ranch. Hank and Mary had dedicated themselves to renovating the caretaker's house with the same love and care that they would have if they were preparing a nest for their own children. Sophia followed each change with fascination, running daily to the small house after returning from school. Now that she was temporarily living in the main house with Hank and Mary, she had resumed her studies. Luna followed her faithfully on her inspections, as if she also wanted to supervise the preparations. Mary smiled, observing the soft blue they had chosen for the living room. "Yes, honey, and your bedroom will be lilac, just like you asked." A momentary silence fell upon them at the mention of Regina. Since the visit to the hospital, Sophia's aunt had remained distant, although she had agreed to send Antonio and Sophia's belongings as soon as the house was ready. Sophia ran to him and hugged his legs, catching him by surprise. "Thank you, Mr. Hank. You and Mrs. Mary are like angels, you know." "Come see what arrived for your room," Mary called, changing the subject. On the porch of the house, several boxes waited to be opened. "Hank found them in town." "Of course, little one," Hank replied, already starting to unpack the curtains. "Your dad needs a special place to read your stories, doesn't he?" Mary watched the scene with her heart overflowing with love. In such a short time, this little one had become an essential part of their lives. The main house seemed more alive with her presence, and the idea of having her living nearby, along with her father, brought a joy that she could hardly contain. Sophia clapped her hands with enthusiasm. "Can I put sprinkles on top? Daddy loves sprinkles." Hank and Mary exchanged an emotional look. Sophia spoke rarely about her mother, and each mention was like a precious gift, a demonstration of trust that they cherished. The sun began to set, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange. Luna accompanied each movement with her watchful eyes, as if she knew that her mission to protect Sophia had transformed into something even greater. She had helped create a new family. The morning that Antonio was discharged from the hospital dawned with an extraordinarily blue sky. Sophia had woken up even before sunrise, her anxiety making it impossible to continue sleeping. Luna, realizing the agitation of her young friend, remained close to the fence that separated the stable from the caretaker's house, as if standing guard. "Everything is perfect," Mary assured for the third time, watching Sophia rearrange the books on the shelf that Hank had made. "Your dad will love the surprise." "What time is Mr. Hank going to pick up Daddy?" Sophia asked, adjusting for the 1,000th time the picture frame with an old photo of her with her parents, which Regina had sent along with the other belongings. The sound of hooves caught the attention of both. Luna had moved even closer to the fence, her attentive ears turned towards the road. Sophia ran outside, knowing that the mare always seemed to sense when something important was about to happen. As if responding to the question, Luna whinnied softly, her muzzle gently touching the girl's hair. Mary watched the scene from the porch, marveling once again at the special bond between the two. The vehicle stopped in front of the house, and Hank got out first, smiling broadly. He walked to the passenger side, opening the door to help Antonio. Sophia's father was still pale and a little thinner than normal, but his eyes shone with a renewed life. "My little one," he whispered, kissing the top of her head. "I missed you so much." "Come on, Daddy." Sophia pulled his hand gently. "I want to show you our house. I helped decorate everything. There's even a shelf for your books and daisies in the garden, just like Mommy liked." Antonio stopped at the entrance, looking around with wonder. The cozy living room, the simple but well-cared-for furniture, the curtains that let in the sunlight, everything had been prepared with such care that it was impossible not to be moved. Luna watched everything from the fence, her presence a constant reminder of how that story had begun. Sophia ran to her again, her eyes shining with happiness. A month had passed since Antonio and Sophia's arrival at Harmony Ranch. Autumn was painting the trees with golden hues, and the mornings were beginning to get cooler. Antonio regained his strength day after day, starting with small tasks in the garden and gradually taking on more responsibilities on the ranch. On that special Sunday morning, the whole family, because that's what they had become, was gathered in the yard. Hank had decided that it was time for Sophia to learn to ride, and Luna, as always, would be her companion on this new adventure. Mary smiled, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Luna is more sensible than many humans. Besides, Hank has years of experience teaching children how to ride." "Come here, little one," Hank called, extending his hands to help her mount. "Remember what we talked about?" Slowly and with confidence. "That's right," Hank praised, keeping a hand on Luna's side as they walked around the yard. "Keep your back straight and look forward." "Look, Daddy," Sophia called, waving as Luna completed another lap in the yard. "I'm doing it." Antonio's heart stopped for an instant, fearing that Luna would also be startled. But to his surprise and admiration, the mare simply turned her ears in the direction of the noise and continued her quiet pace, as if saying, "Don't worry, I'm with her." Mary, who had run to calm Thunder, returned to them. "It's amazing, isn't it? Since that first night in the cemetery, Luna chose Sophia, or maybe it was the other way around." "But you gave her the most important thing," Mary replied gently. "You gave her love, honesty, values, and when you needed help, the universe conspired in your favor." The three adults watched in awe as Sophia and Luna took another lap around the yard, moving in perfect harmony. The late morning sun created a golden halo around them, as if nature itself wanted to highlight the beauty of that moment. Mary took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Family isn't measured by repayments, Antonio. It's measured by the love we share, by the smiles we exchange, by the strength we give each other." "You know what?" she said, stroking Luna's mane. "I think Mommy must have sent Luna to us from heaven to help us find our new family." On that special afternoon, While Sophia did her homework on the porch, supervised by Luna, who rested near the steps, an unexpected visit arrived at the ranch. The sound of a familiar car made everyone raise their heads. It was Regina. "Hi, Sophia," Regina called softly, stopping at a respectful distance. "I brought some things I found at the house. Things from your mom." "I was cleaning out the house," Regina explained, her voice carrying an emotion that no one had seen before. "And I found these keepsakes that your mom had saved. There are photos, some letters, and—" She paused, taking something special out of the box. Her diary. "Did you know that your mom also loved horses?" Regina asked, gently leafing through the diary. "She wrote a lot about it here. She dreamed of having a ranch someday, raising horses." "There's more," Regina continued, her voice choked. "I found this too." She pulled an old photograph from the box, showing a young woman riding a white horse, her smile radiant against the blue sky. Hank and Mary exchanged meaningful glances. Luna, as if understanding that she was being mentioned, came closer, her muzzle gently touching Sophia's shoulder. Regina looked around the ranch, observing the flowers in the garden, the animals grazing peacefully, the peace that emanated from every corner. I'm so sorry," she said finally, her words laden with sincere regret. "For everything. I was so lost in my own problems that I couldn't see what was really important." Sophia, still holding the photo of her mother, looked at her aunt with eyes that seemed older and wiser than her 6 years. "Aunt Regina," she called softly, "do you want to see my daisy patch? Daddy helped me plant it, just like Mommy liked." While Sophia guided her aunt through the garden, proudly showing off each flower and telling about her adventures on the ranch, the adults began to explore the contents of the box. Each photo, each letter, each small keepsake was a window to the past, a chance to better know the woman who had left too soon. Luna watched everything from the nearby fence, her watchful eyes following every movement. The afternoon sun bathed the scene in a golden light, as if Clara was smiling down from heaven, satisfied to see her family finally reunited and healed. Spring arrived at Harmony Ranch, bringing with it an explosion of colors and new beginnings. The garden that Antonio and Sophia had cultivated together was in full bloom, the daisies dancing in the wind like little white ballerinas. It was a special Sunday. It had been exactly 6 months since Luna had found Sophia on that fateful night in the cemetery. To celebrate the date, Hank and Mary had organized a small picnic in the field. Colorful blankets were spread out on the grass, baskets overflowing with treats prepared with care by Mary and Sophia, who had become her official helper in the kitchen. Regina was also present, her presence now welcome and natural. In recent months, she had transformed into a present and loving aunt, visiting regularly and always bringing new stories about Clara, which she shared with Sophia during long afternoons of conversations on the porch. Luna, who was grazing peacefully near the group, raised her head, her white coat gleaming under the sun that was beginning to break through the clouds. Sophia ran to her, hugging her neck as she did so often. Antonio, who was helping Hank organize the drinks, stopped to observe his daughter. The contrast between the frightened and lonely Sophia of 6 months ago and this radiant and confident girl before him was striking. As if to confirm Mary's words, Luna gently nudged Sophia with her muzzle, making the girl laugh. It was a crystalline, pure laugh, the kind of sound that made all the hearts around fill with joy. Antonio exchanged a look with Hank, who nodded with a smile. In a few minutes, Sophia was mounted on Luna, proudly displaying her newly acquired skills. Regina watched in awe, commenting on how she reminded her of Clara in her youth. "She is," Regina replied, wiping away a discreet tear. "I'm sure she is, and not just of Sophia, but of all of us, for finally becoming the family she always dreamed we would be." Sophia led Luna back to the group, her cheeks flushed with excitement and happiness. "Mrs. Mary," she called, dismounting with the grace that came from practice, "can we tell that story again? The story of how Luna found me?" As Mary narrated the story that everyone already knew by heart, but that they never tired of hearing, the group snuggled closer. Antonio embraced Sophia, who settled into his lap. Regina sat next to them, her eyes shining with tears of gratitude. Hank continued to strum his guitar softly, creating a perfect soundtrack for that moment. Luna remained close, as always, her ears attentive to the story being told. The sun began to set on the horizon, painting the sky with shades of pink and orange, as if nature itself wanted to create the perfect setting for that moment of unity and love. Harmony Ranch had become much more than just a place. It was a living testament to how love, in its most varied forms, had the power to heal, transform, and create bonds that transcended time and space. And Luna, the four-legged angel who had started that entire journey, would forever remain the living symbol of how hope can arise in the most unexpected places, bringing with it the miracle of renewal and life.